So, we dedicated an episode of our podcast to the spiritual heart. Both me and Vajin walk the spiritual life on a path that is really focused on the heart. And we do a deep dive into all the secrets and wonders of the heart, the qualities of the heart, and we also talk about how to reach the spiritual heart and what kind of practices you can do to reach the heart. We also talk about the role of the mind and how the mind very often blocks the free flow of the heart, what we can do, what strategies we can use to overcome that. So it's a really rich and jam-packed episode with lots of great takeaways for your own spiritual journey. And so I hope you enjoy. I wanted to talk about what the spiritual heart really is and also the secrets of the spiritual heart. It has a lot of magic. It has a lot of qualities. It has a lot of things it can help us with in our spiritual journey. And it's really, I think, a very underestimated part of our being. We don't really realize how powerful the heart is and how it can help us navigate life in a much more fulfilling way. Because usually we're stuck in the mind, right? Especially here in the West, our mind is so developed to such an extent that it has almost overclouded the heart in some respects. And that has, the mind is a fantastic tool. And as we've said before in our podcast, it's a great servant, but a poor master. And so I would propose to make the heart the master rather than the mind. And I think that life is going to be much more fulfilling that way. What do you say?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And yeah, I was excited actually when you suggested we talk about the spiritual heart, because I totally agree that it is part of our being that is woefully underdeveloped for most of us. And
Yeah.
so if you're looking to change your life and make your life better, you can keep working on the things that you already are using and doing well. Or one of the greatest ways to actually transform things is to find the areas of your weaknesses, the areas where you are weakest, because in those areas you've got much more room to grow. So if you're going to try and make your life better in some ways, and you've already spent the last, however many years educating yourself, taking on more and more information, and developing the capacities of the mind, you've got to think at some point you're actually getting close to the limits of what the mind is capable of. And so it's actually quite difficult to make yourself better in some way just simply through the mind. Whereas the heart, I think for nearly everyone, is such an untapped area of progress. It's a place where there is just boundless capacity, and yet it's so much overlooked. And instead, the mind is given all of the limelight. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think if, a very good example of how it is to live in the heart is if you look at little children. So children below the age of 10, especially when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, children are all heart. They haven't yet developed the intellectual mind, the sophisticated mind. That happens when we become 11, 12, 13 years old, then the mind starts kicking in. But before that, children, they're so charming. And one of the reasons they're so charming is that they're so spontaneous, right? They don't have to think about how they react to people. They're not strategizing in their reactions or their choices. They just really are who they are, and they totally operate from the heart. And so, children don't know any stranger. They don't know the concept of a stranger. I mean, they can be shy if there's people that they don't know, but a child can go up to you and start talking to you like you're their best friend. And it's this quality of uniting, of being in this kind of paradisical state of what we call oneness, unification, connection, is what the heart really is. It is that quality of uniting and of connection. And you see that in children. They connect so easily to everybody. And another thing that children have is boundless energy. And I think that's another feature of the heart. If you live in the heart, it's like the life energy flows through the heart so freely. It's not blocked. And, if you go and see children, they can play outside for days, like for hours and for a whole day. I remember when I was in my childhood, we would play outside. We'd play soccer, and then it would go on for hours and hours, and we wouldn't get tired. And I see that in my nephew and niece. I have a nephew. Well, he's now 12, and my nephew is 12, and my niece is 8. And a few years ago, when they were still quite young, and they could also just play for hours without getting tired. And it's this like energy, this exuberance, this enthusiasm, which are all qualities of the heart. And children are naturally happy when they are in their normal environment. And I'm not talking about abusive environments, but if a child grows up naturally, it is naturally happy. Very often, childhood is one of the happiest times in our lives, and it's because we are not yet divided by the mind. We're not yet spoiled almost by the workings of the mind, and we're all in this paradisical state of oneness that the heart has. So, yeah, just look at children, and the thing is that it's not that we lose that when we grow older, but it's just that we develop the mind, and the mind kind of takes over from the heart. But the heart still is there. So if we go back and really focus on the heart, we'll talk about how we do that. Um, we can rediscover that forgotten childhood. And it's not that we become childish, but we become childlike. We rediscover that same wonderment and enthusiasm for life that we had when we were young and we were children.
Yes, and I think sometimes adults, they are a little bit of afraid of this idea because they fear in some way that they will lose their sophistication, or that they will lose their intellect, or all of the things that they've spent so much time curating and developing. There's almost a fear of letting go of those things. But if you were really wise, you would think to yourself, "Well, I spent so much time creating my persona and my who I am in the world, and trying to develop myself. But has it actually got me any closer to happiness and to joy and to this enthusiastic, energetic state that you're talking about?" And most adults would realize that they may have had a lot of outer success, or a lot of success in their career or in their business, or whichever field of endeavor. But on that deep human level of actually what has the experience of life been for them? Often it's full of so much doubt and uncertainty and worry and stress. And all of these experiences that we perhaps would like to have far fewer of. And it really seems that the only way to free yourself from these types of experiences, the worries, the doubts, the fears, insecurities, all of those things that come as being part of the adult world, is to learn to go beyond the mind and to connect back to the heart and go back to that paradisical state that you're talking about. And I think
Yeah.
it's important that people know as well. It's when as an adult you can start to reconnect and find this consciousness, because it's a state of being, it's a state of consciousness. It's just that children, because of their nature and their time in their lives, for them that state of consciousness is very easy to enter into. It's their natural state of being, and then over time they too lose their connection with it. So
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. When children become like 12 or 13 years old, you also see that their behavior starts to change. And that's where things like peer pressure come to the fore. The children are looking around, what kind of shoes are my friends wearing? What kind of brand of clothing are they wearing? How long can they stay up? And they start to compare. And that's all the teachings of the mind. And gently start losing that enchantment of the heart. And then, we grow into adults and the mind actually completely takes over, you could say. And I think it's at some point it's a bit of a tragedy because the mind by nature is division, right? That's one of the, I think, if you want to qualify the mind, it's division. It separates us, and that's a good thing for the mind because we need to separate things in our life in order to organize and categorize, and plan our life. The mind is really a great planning tool and an organizer that gets us, through the day, and that makes us helps us through life on earth, but it really divides. And so that's when things like fear and jealousy and insecurity start to rear their heads when we develop the mind, because fear definitely comes from division. It's like when we are one, when I feel that, I'm one with my friends or my fellow beings, there's no fear there. But if there's a sense of division, that's when fear starts. And I think all kinds of problems arise from that sense of division. And again, the heart unifies. So we can cure that division. So we should really use the heart to live in that state of connection and oneness, where at the same time, like you said, we don't have to be afraid to lose the propensities of the mind. We can still be, um, we can still think in an intellectual or even intelligent way, and in a philosophical way. We don't lose that. It's just that we augment our life with the qualities of the heart. We can bring those back.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds. I like the word you used there, the augment. That
Yeah,
we're gonna have an
augmented reality.
augmented reality, and instead of using AI, we're gonna use the heart power, and that sounds
Yeah,
it sounds a lot more interesting to me.
yeah. We should go to Mark Zuckerberg with that idea.
I just want to share a little bit that Sri Chinmoy wrote about that, which I think will lead on to some things that we want to talk about. Sri Chinmoy, he loved the spiritual heart, and he really was one of the great promoters of the power of living in the spiritual heart, and learning to meditate and connect with our own hearts, and then offer our goodwill to the world, and how powerful that could be. So he said, unfortunately, this world of ours has not yet seen the face or felt the heart of peace. Why? Precisely because we are trying to bring about peace only with our mind's brilliance and splendor. As long as we try to establish peace on the strength of our mind's capacities, we shall sadly fail. We shall succeed only when we exercise our heart's capacities. The experiences of the heart strengthen us, expand our horizons, and make us feel that we are all one family with only one home. Each individual is a pilgrim. With our wings of joy and our ever new dreams, let us fly in the sky of love and promise. With our love, we shall see and feel the world as our very own. With our promise, we shall increase the beauty and divinity of all human beings and all nations. So
It's a beautiful prayer. Yeah.
it's very beautiful, because it almost is prayer-like in the way that Sri Chinmoy captures that idea. But this idea that the problems that we're dealing with, we're not going to be able to solve them by using the same tool that created the problems. It's our mind's propensity for division and separation and fear and anxiety and worry and all of these things that has led to these all of the problems that we're facing. And so when there's that great pearl of wisdom, that you're not going to find the solution to the problems from the same state of consciousness that created those problems. You need to
Isn't
find.
that Einstein again?
Yes.
Isn't that our friend Einstein? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to find an access to a different type of knowledge and a different type of wisdom. And it seems as though the heart, the spiritual heart, is the land that we're looking for, which has this wisdom and this access to things that we need to know.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of credit to the mind, it's the mind did. Sri Chinmoy talked about that as well in his writings. That the mind helped us to grow out of the animal kingdom. So at some point we were kind of animal-like, and the mind, made us into humans. So the mind separated us from the animal kingdom and gave us the power of self-reflection and of imagination and consciousness in a different way. So it was definitely necessary in our evolution. But I think we've reached a point now in our evolution where we need to go beyond the mind and enter into the sphere of the heart. And I think it's really a step forward in our spiritual evolution as a species that we now bring the heart to the fore. And I think you can see that in the world. Like I've been giving meditation classes for 20 years, and I can see that there's really an awakening of the heart that is gradually happening all over the world. Things like spirituality and meditation, they've become very mainstream nowadays. And these are always things that are going to promote the heart, because meditation and spirituality and always talks about union and unifying, and also the qualities of peace and love and beauty and promise, and they're all qualities of the heart. So I'm hoping that we will find ourselves in a new era of the heart where these things become more mainstream as well.
Yeah, I do. Totally second what you're saying there. That I've also seen it from my perspective. And so maybe let's look at the spiritual heart, like where it is, and like what we actually mean by that part of our beings. So For me, the spiritual heart is connected with the chakra, the anahata chakra, which means the soundless chakra. So it's said if we could really open and connect our with our spiritual heart center, with that chakra, with that spiritual energy center, that there is a soundless or an unstruck sound that is created within our own hearts. And so when we talk about chakras, I don't think we've really talked too much about chakras on our podcast before, but
That's right.
yeah, most people have some idea that chakras are spiritual energy centers. And so we all have seven main chakras, from the root chakra or Muladhara up to the crown chakra at the just above the crown of our head. And when we talk about the spiritual heart, we are talking about an energy center in our subtle body. So we're not talking about, it's not the same thing as our physical heart. So our physical heart is in the center of our chest. I think it's slightly to the left. Um, some spiritual figures, there's been many different people have said slightly different things about exactly where the spiritual heart center is. So I know Ramana Maharshi used to say it was slightly to the right of the chest. But Sri Chinmoy felt it was rather central, and I think it was like 12 finger widths up from the navel, and then six
Oh.
finger widths down from the center of the throat.
Well, I think it's if I can interrupt. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's right. Yeah, I don't know if people see that, but it's like when you point to yourself, that is actually the exact place where the heart is located. You
you
know, when you
just
say I,
find it.
yeah. And it's interesting because intuitively, I think we know that this is what really represents us when we speak about ourselves. You know, we don't point anywhere else. We don't point here or here. We point there. And so that is, for me, very spiritually significant because we take our identity, when we talk about ourselves, as here in the heart. And that's totally, apt, because in
Mm.
the heart is described in the Vedas, even in the ancient spiritual scriptures, as the seat of the soul. And so when we talk about our true self, the soul, it's located right there in the heart. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so that energy center, that chakra, so that is what we're talking about when we're talking about the spiritual heart center. So when we're trying to connect consciousness with that part of our being, there is an actual place that we can focus our energy. So just like we can focus our energy or focus our awareness on a candle flame or on music or on our breath or on the tips of our fingers, we can also use that point, the chakra, to focus our energy there, which will help bring our awareness down from the mind and start to connect with the spiritual heart center. And I know, Abhinav, you've got a meditation week going on this week in Amsterdam. So how have you been trying to explain and teach people how to bring their awareness from their mind and try and connect it with the heart?
Yeah, we had a session this Monday where I actually talked about the spiritual heart. It was all dedicated to the heart. And so, yeah, we did a few exercises where we actually started out with touching the heart, because when we touch something, we immediately bring our awareness to it. If you touch your shoulder, you become aware of the shoulder. The same with the heart. So I told people either to touch it with their palms like this, or a very powerful meditation mudra. The position of the hand is called mudra in meditation. It's like this one, the Anjali mudra, where you fold your hands and place them in front of your heart. And Sri Chinmoy actually taught us to meditate like this. He said this is a very, very powerful way of meditating and connecting to the heart, because you're touching the heart, and at the same time, your hands kind of make an antenna where I feel you're also receiving from above, from the cosmos, receiving things and immediately connecting them to the heart. The heart is also the most receptive place in us where we can receive those divine qualities. Yeah, so we started out by touching the heart, and then we also imagined when we breathe that we are breathing into our heart. So every time we inhale, it's not, imagine that your breath is actually entering into the heart. And those are all things when you can put your awareness, like you said, pull your awareness into this area right here. And it's really not just imagination. There is a reality. We do feel here those things when we are really touched by a movie or a work of art or a painting or a piece of music. We can actually feel it in this area. We feel it in the spiritual heart. And the same with real spiritual emotions or deeper emotions like gratitude. Gratitude is a great example. Gratitude is all heart based. And so Yeah, the more you can focus here, and I would say to people, spend a few minutes every day just by putting your awareness here, and automatically your heart will become stronger. And another aphorism of Sri Chinmoy that I really like to always mention during my classes, which really tells us the power of the heart. He said, "Man can be happy and safe only when the heart feels faster than the mind thinks." So we have to try and make the heart so strong that it becomes more powerful than our mind.
Yeah, and you can see that being acted out so many times every day in your life and the lives of people around you, where the mind reacts so quickly to a situation or circumstance, and often in a very inappropriate fashion for what we're actually trying to create. If we're trying to create, like say in our family or in our relationship, we're trying to create a place of trust and love, and then very often the mind can be so harsh and cutting with its judgments and with its ideas, that someone will do something that annoys us or upsets us in some way, and the mind will so quickly turn to wanting to hurt the other person or create some sort of um, impact in their lives. And it's so wise to think, if you can actually learn to live more and more from your heart, and to soften yourself somewhat. And so instead of allowing the mind to do its harsh responses to the world, instead take the time and actually feel what is the right thing to do. Because those strong emotions that we get and those strong responses are nearly always wrong. And when we look back on them, we nearly always regret how we acted in the heat of the moment. And if you
Yeah.
can take that time, it's like that space we talk about that we gain through meditation, that space, that momentary pause where we can actually start to feel and choose a different approach to the situation. But yeah, I think that one aphorism alone, it's there's a whole lifetime of wisdom and work to be done just in that aphorism.
Yeah, true. And I think also this is one of the differences between the East and the West. I think in the East, people are more heart based. And as I said before, in the West, we have developed the mind to a really large extent, which has brought us a lot of wealth and affluence and prosperity. But for Westerners, if we go to the East, let's say we are the first time in Asia, many people say, "Wow, the people there are so lovely. Like everybody smiles and everybody's friendly." And I think for us Westerners, that's almost really like a culture shock, like how friendly and nice people and sweet people are there. And we are much harsher in our day-to-day dealings. Like you go to a city like New York, where we have our meditation retreats. I mean, that's quite a tough city. People are very upfront, and that is, well, one of the great things about the East is that they have this kind of natural heart-based feeling. It's not that they never argue or that they never have those problems. They also have the mind, of course, but it's much much more heart-based. And that's exactly what you said. Like if we can live more from the heart and bring more of that sweetness and kind of joy, and another quality of the heart, forgiveness. So if people are angry with you and you really live from the heart, you can you can actually absorb the anger without it affecting you negatively. And actually, I told a story from the Buddha's life yesterday in my meditation class. There was a time when the Buddha was approached by a man who was very aggressive and didn't like the Buddha at all and what he was teaching and preaching. And he went up to the Buddha and started abusing him, using very foul language and really aggressive. And the Buddha just stood there in front of this man, completely calm and composed, and didn't flinch, and just his serene smile was there. And at some point, the man just like started. He got so frustrated by the Buddha's lack of reaction that he just left, totally frustrated. And the Buddha's disciples were there, and they saw the reaction, and they were just amazed. And they asked, the Buddha, they asked, "Master, how come that you didn't flinch? You didn't react at all? This man was so angry and so frustrated and so disgusted with you." And the Buddha's answer was, if somebody wants to give you a gift and you refuse the gift, then he has to take the gift back. So, the man, all his anger and just like ricochet off the Buddha's
Yeah.
peace and quiet, and he had to kind of like get all that anger was thrown back at him. That's one of the things when you live from the heart, this power that you develop, that you're not anymore so taken aback by other people's reactions. You can, like you say, you can take a break. You're more centered from within, and there's more of a, yeah, a forgiving quality to your reactions, and a more compassionate way of living.
Yeah, so why don't we talk a little bit about some of the qualities of the heart, just to kind of give people a good lay of the land, and
Please.
one of the interesting things is there's so much knowledge we already have in our culture and in our lives about these things that we don't even question it. It's like if we think of the heart, we immediately think of love, we think of generosity, we think of kindness, we think of self-giving and forgiveness, and all of these are real deep heart qualities. And somehow we all know that they come from the heart. We know that these are not the qualities of the mind. But yet, how few of us take any time to actually consciously try and cultivate these qualities by spending time with our own heart. But so there's all of those ones that people think of most commonly. But I think also I'm sure there's some that people don't think of as much, and so we've talked about oneness before in our podcasts, and I think oneness and identification are a couple of the most profound heart qualities that people are perhaps a little bit less familiar with. And what they are really is the ability to actually not just empathize with someone, but to really expand yourself and to connect with someone on a much more feeling based level. So instead of there being a yawning gulf between me and yourself, and your suffering and my suffering, we can actually expand through the heart and actually really connect with other people. We can really expand ourselves and really feel their experiences, but also they can feel the connection with us. And I think so much of human suffering is caused by the sense of loneliness and disconnection, and that inability to really feel what anyone else is feeling, and to feel something beyond ourselves. And so I think that's really one of the most powerful things is it allows us to expand ourselves and to connect with people around us in a much more powerful and profound way. And it also goes beyond that. With the heart, we can really, like, everywhere you go, there's a field of energy, a field of information. And when we're in our minds, we're so often caught up with our thinking and our planning and our processing of what's happened and what we think may happen, that we often don't feel the energy of a place properly. We don't get a true sense of it. And I'm always reminded, um, one time when I was with you actually, and we were visiting the Grand Canyon, I was standing there in the evening looking out, and I'd been there for maybe an hour or two, just marveling at this expansive vastness, and the amazing consciousness and quality that you get in being at a place that's so ancient, and it's so being crafted entirely by nature, by the water and the wind and the erosion. But this family, American family, turned up. It was like mum, dad, and three kids, and they saw that they pulled up in the car park near the edge. They all trundled over to the edge. They stood there, and they all stood there and said, "Wow, look at it! Wow!" And after about 3 or 4 minutes, one of the parents says, "Okay, shall we go now?" And the kids are like, "Yeah." So they all went back to the car. And they went, and I
Oh god.
just thought, wow, that's such an amazing thing. Like, they'd probably come halfway across the country and like, oh, we've always wanted to see this. But most of us have an inability to feel anything there. You get there and it's just massive, and it's amazing, but it's hard to get over that limitation of the mind that you're a separate being. This is some ancient thing that's been crafted over millions of years. It's just hard to connect the two things when you feel
Yeah.
like you're just some finite being.
But it also takes time to feel those things. You have to take it. It takes really time. I mean, it takes minutes, to really enter into the consciousness of that place. A couple of years ago, I was invited by somebody who gives art tours, and I was still writing as a freelance journalist, and I had to write a little piece about this art tour. And this person, she took me to a museum in Amsterdam, and we had a whole hour, and she showed me 4 paintings in this hour. And
Brilliant.
each painting, I had to sit in front of the painting and like almost meditate on it for like 10 to 15 minutes. And I've never done that before, but it was absolutely magical. And the whole painting started become alive, and I started to connect with it, and I started to have experiences with it, and I saw more beauty and more subtlety inside the paintings. And for me, it was a real eye opener of how to actually appreciate art properly and to take time and feel the painting. And it was amazing. So nowadays when I go to a museum, I really try to look for a few paintings that kind of appeal to me, and then I really take time to look at it. I'm not just looking at it and moving on, but I want to just like focus in on it and take a few minutes to really get the vibe of that painting, you know? And that's the same. I think it speaks to the same quality there of learning how to feel and to be one with the consciousness and vibe of the place.
Yeah, and I think that captures another quality as well, which is patience. And I think the heart is one of the other qualities that's most not commonly thought of around the heart is actually patience. And I think because the heart connects us to that eternal, immortal, transcendent part of ourselves that is beyond time and space, that if we want to really be able to sink into the moment and be completely present in this particular moment here and now, the heart is the only way we can do that. Because I think the mind, like when we were talking, you were talking earlier just about the mind. So much of what the mind does is the mind is a future predicting machine. It's consciously and constantly trying to look at information, and it's trying to predict what's going to happen next. And that's where all of our fears and worries are created in the processing of the potentials of what could happen. And we make up all of these hypotheticals. And one of the great comments about that is just regarding the amount of suffering that has occurred in the world from things that have never happened.
Yes.
And I think when you actually start to think about that, you think, wow, that is so true. That the amount of things you have spent time worrying about that never actually occurred. It's like, oh, maybe I got a parking ticket while I was at the theater or going some, or maybe this happened. Maybe someone broke into my house. Maybe like an infinite number of things that you could possibly worry about. And nearly all of them have never happened. And so,
Yes.
but yet the amount of emotional energy and time people have spent worrying about these things. So I think that's another area that the learning to live from the heart is the process of learning to live in the present moment, to living in the here and now. And when we're truly in the here and now, there's not that time and space for worrying about the future. There's so much going on in that moment. So it's like when you are there with that painting, to start with, for the first few minutes, you've got to get yourself out of the mind. You're looking around and you're trying to make sense of it. And then at some point, the mind starts to get bored and it starts to make you want to look around at other things and starts to give you the sense, oh, maybe I should move on and look at something else. But if you actually just stay there a little bit longer, like perhaps with this family at the Grand Canyon, if they just stayed for 2 or 3 more minutes, suddenly the whole thing would have opened up and they could have stood there for hours and really
Yes.
appreciated, because it takes time to see. Because one of the things that I really notice with the Grand Canyon, for example, is when you stand there long enough and really pay attention, you start to see these amazingly beautiful patterns caused by the clouds and the shadows of the clouds against the walls of the canyon. But when you just look once, in one moment, you don't see these patterns changing because they're happening relatively slowly. And so it takes that time to actually be there and just to be present and to actually start to understand, to see the nature of what you're seeing. And
Yes.
the thing, like most things in the world outside of the human world are happening at a much slower rate of slower speed. Like we're rushing around like crazy trying to make the most of things, and trying to do everything we can and be as productive as we can.
You mean I do, whereas you don't. I mean, we both know we have very different speeds of life, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And
I think you're an unforgivable time waster, and you think I'm an absolutely unforgivable, like, hurrier.
Yeah, but I totally appreciate your productivity. But I
Thank you.
like there's wonderful monks in Japan, and I think they're somewhere around Kyoto. And We in our community we know of the famous marathon monks of Mount Hiei just outside of Kyoto, but there's another group of monks, and I've seen this amazing footage of them, and they will walk a pilgrimage route as well, and they will walk it incredibly slowly. And so they will be walking at least maybe 3 or 4 times slower than the average person is walking. So they're walking incredibly intentionally. So every step, they're taking full conscious awareness into every step. And someone filmed them, and it's amazing because they filmed it from the speed of the monks walking. So you see this monk walking, he's come into the city and he's walking his pilgrimage route, and so he's really moving very slowly, and you see everyone else, and it's like, it looks like they're like basically sprinting. It just looks so crazy how fast everyone else is going, because once you get used to the speed with which he is walking, and you see everyone else, they just seem to be like rushing around like crazy. So it's really interesting, I think, to understand that every moment you could be experiencing at vastly different speeds depending on your own consciousness. So there's not one world, there's not one reality we're all experiencing. Instead, we're all experiencing our own version of reality. And it's
Yeah.
been curated and crafted and molded by our own consciousness. And so if you feel as though that your dynamism is being effective in the world, and it's giving you joy and it's allowing you to do all the things you want to do, like, that's fantastic. And and I think you're someone who has enough wisdom through your own spiritual practices that you'll know when you're rushing too much. And you probably you'll feel it from your heart before your mind lets you know. um,
True.
but there's other people who really know they need to slow down. And I think the heart is what they're looking for. It's like taking themselves out of that busyness of the mind, and trying to just do that practice of connecting, like dropping the consciousness down, breathing into the heart and bringing the awareness there. And
Yeah,
then,
and there's a beautiful aphorism of Sri Chinmoy's that I'm just reminded of, and that I have to kind of repeat to myself once in a while when I'm rushing too much. And this is the aphorism: slow down, if you really want God's golden crown.
well,
Deep, right?
that is really deep. And I wonder what the experience of wearing God's golden crown would be like. I wonder.
But it's probably good. It's probably a good thing,
Yeah,
I would say.
it's one of those things, like you already
And
see it in video games. Like when you win a crown, it's like a good thing. Or on
yeah,
Striver, when you
exactly.
win the crown, it's always a good thing.
Yeah. And I think what you said is really true, about first we have to take a few minutes to get out of our mind. I mean, that's actually step number one, right? And then only the heart starts to kind of function. Because what I also talk about a lot in my meditation classes is that the heart cannot really come to the fore if there's too much activity in the mind. And of course, we're talking about thoughts. The mind is the thought factory. It's churning out thoughts like nonstop during the waking hours of our life. And thoughts really are like clouds that are covering the sun. The heart is very often compared to a sun. It's like bright, it's shining, it's emitting its sunshine all around. But we can't really enjoy the sun when it's clouded. We just joked about, before we started our podcast, we joked about the weather here in the Netherlands right now, where we are entering into the phase of autumn and then winter, and we have a lot of cloudy days now. And when you go about your day and it's all clouded, it's like when an alien would land on this planet, it was like, wow, there's no sun here. Amazing. I mean, there is a sun, but it's just hiding behind the clouds, and you don't see it. You don't even see a flash of it. But then when you enter into an airplane, there's always this magical moment when the plane goes above the clouds, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this wide open blue sky with its bright sun. And that's actually the what meditation does. Meditation is like going into the airplane, and it lifts off. And when you take enough time and you do the right practice, it will enter above the clouds. So there comes a time when you break through this mind barrier, this thought barrier, and then you experience the sunshine of the heart. But it is really a practice to deal with the thoughts, right? So do you have any suggestions of how to do that, how to deal with the constant onslaught of thought?
Yeah, so I mean, that is one of the great battles here in the physical world, in the world of life, that we have been blessed and cursed with this particular type of awareness and consciousness. but it is the exact right type of consciousness to have if we want to rediscover our truest nature and to be able to see it afresh or see it anew as though it's the first time. So there is something wonderful about this game that we're playing. That it's the game of hide and seek that we're playing. So we've we keep on forgetting what we truly are. We truly are this blissful sunshine of the heart. We are this consciousness that has the capacity for oneness and identification, for love, for generosity and kindness. But we keep thinking that we are the worries and the stresses and the anxieties of the mind. And so, even on a small day to day level, we're playing the game of forgetting what we are and then remembering. And each time you take that little moment during your day, and it might be that you've been totally frazzled at work and you finally get in the car and you sit down. And always before I drive my car, I'll always take a moment where I'll try and meditate and I'll try and connect with my own heart and just bring myself out from my mind and just try and become really present and aware. So like my consciousness is good for driving. And every time I do that, especially if I've been working or really busy, it's just like it's just like this wonderful moment of like it's like an exhalation and of a letting go of this unreality of this like heavy load I was carrying, which no one was asking me to carry. It was entirely self-imposed. And it's just that like many times per day, as many times as we can, it's we want to keep reminding ourselves that I'm not just the mind, I'm something far beyond the mind. I'm something far more beautiful and something far more peaceful and something far more interesting.
Yeah, and I think many people have had the experience of the heart. So when you sometimes you have a moment when you're walking down the street, or maybe you're walking in nature, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with this sudden realization or this sudden experience of happiness or joy or peace. It's like this, it comes to you and everything seems perfect at that time. You're just, and it's not an outer thing. It's not that somebody's paid you a compliment or you received some good news or something like that. It's not happiness that comes from those situations. It's a totally inner happiness that blossoms. And this is a magical moment where you feel, wow, I feel so happy. And all of us have experienced those moments. And that is actually an experience of the heart. That is when that sunshine of the heart finally breaks through the clouds of the mind, and it sometimes happens spontaneously, and it often happens when we're not expecting it, and when we're not stressed. It often happens when we are just, we may be wandering around, just walking, or in nature strolling, and then this heart comes to the fore. And very often people think when it happens, oh, if I only could keep this longer, because eventually it does fade away again, and the mind kind of takes over, and the thoughts come in again, and we kind of resume our normal day-to-day consciousness. But these really rare gems, these really rare moments are when we do experience the heart. And the great news is that we can live in that consciousness. So I think that's the power of a spiritual practice, is the very idea, the very goal of the spiritual practice is to take you, to live there all the time, in that space of happiness, of that inner happiness that is spontaneously welling up. And people sometimes think that, oh, I just had a it's like a finite amount. I just had a little bit of a blessing and it's gone. No, no, it's actually infinite. It's actually boundless. It never dries up. All the other things dry up, like our outer achievements and our money and our wealth and all those things, they dry up, but the inner fount of the heart never dries up.
And it does seem as well that it's actually completely natural and spontaneous. When we create the right environment and the right conditions, it can, like you said, it can just spontaneously bubble up those types of experiences. And so that's one of the things, and it's one of the reasons that I love the Taoist worldview, because they're always trying to find the most natural and harmonious way to interact with the world around them. So that was the Taoist way, and they often talk about that trying to use your mind to stop your mind to use your mind to make your mind still is like trying to smooth a pond with like a metal rake. And so the more you try and smooth the pond, obviously the rougher it gets. So there has to be something, it has to become at some point a natural and spontaneous process. But that's what the practice is. And that's the thing when you see Roger Federer playing tennis, you're like, wow, it looks so easy for him. And it's like, yeah, he didn't just roll out of bed 2 days ago and pick up a racket. It's like, this is what it looks like when you spend 20 years of your life really working on your craft or your art or your practice or whatever it is. And for all of us, all we need is time and consistency. And with those two things, you can make radical transformations. You can completely transform almost anything with enough of those two things, with time and consistency. And so, with your practice, it is you're trying to learn how to do the hard thing, which is to let go of your thoughts and to be present. And that's all it is. You're just trying to learn to let go of thoughts and to be completely present. And it's just like a tennis player is learning how to hit the ball with the right amount of spin and get it back over the net. We're doing the same thing. So every time you're sitting there, you're doing the practice. And the practice is not always a beautiful thing. Like you'll have days when you're practicing, you're like, God, I'm going badly today. And just like an athlete, they'll have the same thing where some days they're hitting the ball amazingly, and some days it's just going all over the show. And it's the same with your own practice. We're not looking for perfection in the practice. That's not what the practice is for. The practice is to do the work. So then in your life, you can actually live in a natural, spontaneous way where you can allow the sunshine of the heart to burst out into your life when you least expect it, but perhaps when you most need it. And so I
Yeah,
think that's the cool thing about the practice is you do it on a daily basis because you know that it's necessary and you know that it's going to slowly, incrementally transform you. But you never know when you're going to get the benefits from it. You never know when you're going to have the moments that make it all worthwhile. And they always come as a surprise. They come on their own. They come on their own schedules. And like I said, perhaps they come when you perhaps need the experiences the most. And so that's what I always say to people as well. When some people say, "Oh, I don't have a lot of good experiences when I'm doing my practice, when I'm sitting there and meditating." And especially in a class of people who are learning, you'll have some people who start talking about, "Oh my God, there was all this golden light," and someone who's not having those experiences will look at that person and think, "Wow, like they are obviously, they're like Roger Federer. It's so easy for them." But perhaps those are the experiences they need at this point to actually encourage them to keep the practice up. And if they don't have some good experiences, perhaps they'll never actually start and dive into doing their practice. And other people, I always think if you know and feel on some level that you feel like doing a practice of meditation is the right thing for you to do, and that's something that you need and you want, and then you can do it despite whatever experiences you have on the way. That is actually much more heroic approach, I think. That
yeah,
for me is really inspiring when you see someone who's just like, I know and I have faith that this practice is transforming me. I'm not seeing it here and now because you're never going to see it right in this particular moment. It's going to always be at some point along your journey that the results of it will be revealed. But I think that's really like such a beautiful and inspiring thing where someone is willing to walk through. And in the spiritual life, they often talk about having dry periods. And then some of the greatest spiritual seekers and practitioners of meditation had very long periods where they would call it a dry spell, where they weren't having a lot of beautiful experiences. But they continuously did the practice. And they say it's like often sometimes you feel like you're walking through the desert and there's just nothing beautiful around. But that's the thing
yeah.
about the desert. If you want to get through the desert, the only thing to do is keep walking. So
Yeah,
there's something for
that's
me
very true.
that I always think about that when I'm around new people and people who are developing their practices. That if you can keep up the practice without relying on the experience you're having in that particular moment, your practices will become really solid. It'll become a real foundation for your life. Whereas
Yeah,
if you're a fair weather meditator, where you'll meditate as long as you get some nice, beautiful experiences, and then as soon as you have a week of those disappearing, suddenly you're no longer practicing.
yeah, you have to do it for the right reasons, right? There's an art to that, like doing something for the right reasons, and I think in meditation, the right reasons are to develop the heart and to uh, learn more about yourself and grow into the best version of yourself. And I think we need the heart for that. Like the heart is absolutely indispensable if we want to grow into a better version of ourselves. Like we said before, we can't do it just with our mind. We really need our heart. And one other quality that I find so endearing of the spiritual heart is the quality of enthusiasm. And I think enthusiasm is something, it's a magical quality, and it's something that grips us. And we don't know beforehand what we get enthusiastic about, you know? And it's like finding your passion in life, finding what is your job here on earth, what is your special mission, your soul's task. And that is something that will enthuse you. And the actual root of the word enthusiasm, I don't know if you've heard this, but do you know the meaning of the word enthusiasm?
No,
It
no, not the root. No, please tell me.
yeah, it comes from the Greek, and it's like "en," "thou," that's the root, and "en" means in, and "thou" comes from theos, which means God. So basically, enthusiasm means the presence of God inside you. It's like the divinity inside you. That is what is happening at that moment, and it's
Oh, it
so
was hiding
full of
there
joy.
inside the whole time, just in the enthusiasm.
Yeah, he's always there. It's just like when you get enthusiastic, he comes out. He's like, "Yes, this is something you should do. This is something you should pay attention to." And I think it's very important for people if they are looking for meaning in their life and like what gives you meaning? What should you do if it's in terms of job or, what you do outside of your work, how to make your life more meaningful? Then look for things that make you enthusiastic, that give you joy, because that is the moment when the heart comes to the fore and your soul actually speaks to you and says, "This is what you should do. This is what you should be spending more time on. This is what you should. It's going to help you in your life." Maybe it's gardening, or maybe it's speed skating, or maybe it's becoming, an organizer, or maybe it's becoming a tennis player. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about enthusiasm as well is that it's a viral quality. If you're really enthusiastic, it does spread to the people around you. Like they start feeling like, oh wow, yeah, this is great. Like this, there's some great energy and there's some great momentum. And so, if you really want to offer something positive to your environment, to the people around you, if you can turn up enthusiastically for life on a regular basis, it makes such a difference because all of us have had the horrible of experience of having someone in a, maybe a workplace or in a group who is just every suggestion, they always just throw cold water on it. They're just, just the height of unenthusiasm. um, and so that also spreads to the people around you. It kind of just, it takes away all of the joy from any engagement, any situation when you have someone who's bringing that sort of quality to bear. So
Yeah, it's like on the piano you have the strings that resonate, and
yeah,
you have these pedals underneath the piano. And one of them is a sustain pedal, means like the sound goes on longer, and one of them is a dampening pedal.
yeah,
And when you press the dampening pedal, whoop, all of a sudden the sound stops. So it's like enthusiasm is that sustain pedal where
yeah,
you're playing something and whoom, it's resonating, it's being amplified. But these people you talk about, and actually very often comes from our own mind, is like that. Our own mind can be the dampening pedal, and somebody just steps on that, and whoop, all of a sudden, all that sound stops. And sometimes we're like that. You become enthusiastic about something, or you're opening up, and then the mind throws in a bad thought or something negative, and whoop, it just presses that dampening pedal.
yeah.
And
So sometimes we can be our own dampening pedal, which is so
yes,
yeah, and I mean that's part of the process as well, though, of learning to um, still and calm our mind is allowing the feelings to flow through us, but without allowing just random thoughts to appear in our mind and our consciousness, because they very much are often the dampening pedals in our life. That something's going well and things are happening and everything's moving in a good direction, and then your mind just feel this is the need sometimes just to like throw a hand grenade in there. It just like, "But remember what happened last time, or remember what that person said to you 12 years ago. Remember it. Why?
yeah. Thanks,
Why?
mind. Thanks
Why?
for ruining my day.
Why right now? Do I need to have that experience? Um,
I mean, very often I'm reminded of, when many of us in our spiritual community have been with Sri Chinmoy when he was still on earth with us. He passed away in 2007. And like in 2005, Sri Chinmoy gave me my spiritual name. And these are one of the few moments when you have a direct contact with your master, you know. And I have a friend, Projal, we both know him. And he was around Sri Chinmoy for many, many years. And he had many of these moments where he was alone with Sri Chinmoy, or when he was, and those are of course special moments if you are with a enlightened master, with a God realized soul. A person like that, is it's there's a lot of energy and love and peace. And something inside you says, like, pay attention and really get everything from this moment. And Projel told me that many times when he had these kind of special moments, when Sri Chinmoy would like bless him or give him something, he said always my mind would interfere. My mind would like say, "Oh, this is really special, really." But it was almost like the mind was waiting for these moments to just come in and press that dampening pedal. And it's almost like it's such a naughty, like cantankerous little rebellious child that is like trying to ruin our best experiences by coming in the most special moments of our life, and just trying to ruin it with a little thought, or like with a little stupid thing. And yeah, I remember when I got my name from Sri Chinmoy, I actually was in a bad mood that whole celebrations. I was not in a good consciousness. And when he gave me my name, he really meditated on me. And it was the first time when I was face to face with my own spiritual master. And he looked at me with such a concentration and focus right into my eyes. And I was just thinking, oh my God, I hope I'm receptive. And I just felt my mood kind of like being there. But I could see that was not affecting Sri Chinmoy at all. He was just going really high in his meditation. And then at the end, he really smiled at me. And I smiled back, but I also felt my mind like being right there. Like I was trying to, like, oh, please don't get into the way of this moment. And I kind of got through it. And I received my name in an envelope. And then I went somewhere quiet and opened up the envelope and read my spiritual name, Abhinaba. It was a very special moment. Unfortunately, I still recall some of that meditation, but I also definitely felt that, all those things that were going on in my consciousness at the time were also blocking the true, depth of that experience to some extent.
Yeah, and so that is, I think, really one of the superpowers of the heart, is that if you can truly learn to be fully present in the moment and just allow the feeling of and the experience of the moment to be the predominant experience you have, I think that is definitely the ideal way to experience anything, whether it's being in nature or being with someone you love or being in a musical performance or anything that you want to enjoy. Because for many years, I actually had that was a question of mine of how do you properly appreciate anything in this world? Because for the last many years, I've been very lucky to travel to some of the most outstandingly beautiful places in the world. And I always remember this experience of being there on my last day, or, I might be up in the Alps in Switzerland or in the Himalayas or wherever it is. And I know I'm looking at this place for the last time until and it's always unknown when you're going to return to a place. So I would always be there, and I would always want to understand, like, what is the right way to experience this place as powerfully as possible, so I can take that experience with me, so I can make it part of me. So, and I knew it wasn't just looking at it with my mind. And so over time, I started to realize that all I really needed to do was very, very simple, actually. It was like, let my mind become very, very still, and then bring my awareness into the heart, and then just make the experience like a meditation. Just be as present as possible, but instead of trying to use my mind to look at the world, just try and feel the world. Just try and feel, what is the experience I'm having of being here at the Grand Canyon, or being here looking at the Matterhorn, or whatever the place is. And you have to have the time, and you have to have you have done some work. You've got to done the practice. But I think a lot of people have that experience where, maybe they've been to Rome for the first time, and it's the big trip, and they want to remember it as powerfully as possible. So they take all of these pictures, And the whole time, they're never really there experiencing because they're so worried about forgetting in the future what it was like that they never really get to experience what it was like actually for the first time.
That's so good. I've actually have a story about that,
Yeah,
but just want to take a minute. I have to take a bathroom break, and we'll be right back. Yeah, so I actually have a story about what you told about being somewhere and taking the pictures. I was this was maybe 15, 20 years ago. I was running on the Peace Run, which is an event that we organized with our spiritual community, a beautiful event that Sri Chinmoy created in 1987, where we run with a peace torch, actually all around the world, bringing the message that peace starts within. Peace starts with each individual, each one of us, and we pass the torch as a symbol for peace. We visit schools, we visit organizations, mayors, governments, and just like try to connect everybody for this idea of peace. It's a really nice way to put peace into action and try to really do something for world peace that is very tangible. And I was running on the peace run in Croatia at the time, and my job, everybody had a job on the team. We had two vans, and we had the runners, and one runner would be out on the road running with the peace torch, and the others would be in the van, and we would switch. We would be a relay run. And my job was to be the photographer on the team. So I had to make the pictures for our website. I mean, this was probably early 2000s. So we did have a website, and we were putting up pictures of what we did that day. But I was a photographer because I at the time had a digital camera, which was, kind of newish technology at the time. But I actually didn't. I was a horrible photographer, and I think I still am. So my pictures would be like, they would be cut off at the wrong side, and it was like not rightly centered, and you could see I was not a great photographer at all. And also, I didn't really like it.
mm,
And the reason I didn't like it is just what you mentioned before, because it would totally take me out of the moment. Now, I saw that if you become a photographer, you constantly have to find good shots. So you're constantly looking for, oh, I should actually make a picture of this now. Or we're going through some beautiful nature. Now it's time to make a picture. And this was constantly on my mind, being the photographer, being responsible for documenting the day. And so I was really not liking this job. And then one morning, I lost my camera. I couldn't find it anywhere. So this digital camera, this kind of new piece of technology was really valuable. It was gone. And I looked in the van, and I looked everywhere in my bag, and I looked in the other van, and nobody had seen it. It was just,
what
it
a
disappeared.
blessing.
And it was a blessing. And at that time, I remembered an aphorism of Sri Chinmoy. And it went something like, in the spiritual life, when you lose a material object, it is no loss. Rather, it can be a great advantage. So this kind of aphorism swam to the fore of my mind, and I realized actually this is a blessing.
Mm,
This is nice because I don't have to make pictures anymore. And what happened was somebody else in the team had a camera and became the photographer, and I was free, and I could finally, really enjoy the whole experience of being on the peace run and enjoying those moments. And for me, like the whole experience lifted from there. Because like you say, I find it so much more valuable to experience things and to take a picture with your heart. Like where's where the real camera is, like, and really soak it up and experience it. And nowadays when I travel, and, we travel a lot together as well, and we have these wonderful experiences where we go places, I don't take a lot of pictures. When I look back on my phone, I'm like, oh man, it's just like maybe 4 or 5 pictures from the whole trip. But I feel like I don't need the pictures because I want to experience it as fully as possible from the heart. And I think that's where the real memories are created. And that's where the value of those trips really lie. They lie in, were you really there? Yeah. Like you said, were you really present? And did you really take everything in, all the beauty and all the special moments that you had together? Those are the real pictures that stay with you forever. And it's nice to have a few pictures on your phone from just, reminding you in a physical sense as well.
yeah, and then very often, I think if you're taking a lot of photos, it's really coming from a place of fear. It's like the mind projecting to the future that if I don't take all these photos, I'll forget all of these things. If I don't take a photo of this church and that church and this one and also this one, but it's like even when you take the photos, you see them all at some point in the future, and you don't remember them anyways. You're like, yeah, what is this place?
Whatever.
Somewhere.
You don't remember there's no feeling behind it. It's just like a
No.
picture. You could have downloaded it from the internet, you know? I
Yeah,
mean, nowadays we can look up the church online and we can
yeah.
see, "Oh, yeah, that's where I was." Sure.
Yeah, but the experience is what we're looking for. And that's what I was saying before, that everyone is not having the same experience. So if we go to Europe and we're all visiting a church together, no one's having the same experience at the church. So everyone is filtering that through their own mind and their own worries and their own fears and all of um, their personality and everything they think they know about the world already. But there will be some people in the church in that moment who are just experiencing the church in that moment. And for me, that's always the interesting thing, because you can have all of these experiences in your mind. You can have those the same experiences at home. You could be at home and thinking about things and worrying about things and planning and doing all of these things in your mind. It's the same. The mind, the space of the mind is similar wherever you go. That's why people say you can never escape from it, because you take it with you. So just because you're somewhere beautiful doesn't mean you won't still be having the same types of thoughts and going through the same sort of mind reality. But the one thing that is always different is actually the consciousness and the energy of the place. And wherever you are, that's different. And when you can really learn to be in your heart and be fully present and identify with the space you're in and the energy of that place, it's always so radically different. And I think I talked about on a previous episode that a friend of my mother, she went blind some years ago, and she'd never traveled overseas. But since she went blind, she has traveled everywhere, and she loves her traveling more than anything. And there is something she's doing. She's feeling from her heart, I think. She's feeling the energy of the place, and she's connecting with that, and she's having experiences based purely on the energy and the consciousness of the place she's visiting, which is radically different wherever you go. So I think that's really a wonderful ability to actually be truly there and experiencing those moments, and especially those moments that are really meaningful for you. If you really
Yeah.
want to really capture the most of them, like, don't be there thinking and worrying and taking photos. Be truly present and be in your heart and try and connect with the space and the energy.
With the place. Yeah, I had a wonderful experience maybe now 7 or 8 years ago with my good friend from Ireland, Sutherland. He's actually coming today to here to Amsterdam to give a talk tonight on the Amsterdam Meditation Week. And Sutherland and I, this was when I was still a freelance journalist, and I'd had a commission from a magazine here in Holland to write about. This was a spiritual magazine, and they wanted me to write about the experiences of the fairies in Ireland. You know, Ireland is known for its fairy lore, you know, the otherworldly beings, the fairies. And there's a whole tradition in Ireland that's very strong of people who've had experiences with fairies, you know, farmers. And there's a whole, yeah, it's very alive, just like it is in Iceland as well. You know, so my commission was, okay, I'm going to visit a few places in Ireland that are known for its fairy lore and where the fairies are supposed to have been. And I was in touch with a lady who'd written a book about her experiences with leprechauns. She actually could see a family of leprechauns. I mean, this is a really great reading tip for people. If you want ever to have a fantastic book on fairies and on the leprechauns, read My Summer with the Leprechauns by Tanis Hallowell. And Tanis is a wonderful lady. I've met her also in public, and she kind of gave me a few tips where to go in Ireland that was special because of this energy. And I went with Sunland, and we had a photographer with us. We rented a car and we traveled to, you know, maybe it was for a whole week. We traveled to different places. And this was really a magical trip. I mean, I haven't seen fairies with my own eyes. I don't have the vision to see them. I mean, I definitely believe that they exist. I mean, there are beings that you know vibrate on a much higher frequency than us, and I do believe angels and fairies, they're real in the higher worlds, but it's just like we can't perceive them with our five senses, and I don't have the capacity to see them. But um, I did feel a lot during that trip. And when I was on those special places in Ireland, I was in Wicklow in the mountains, and we were at this beautiful mountain we climbed that was very well known. And we went to this beautiful magical grove where there was just this very special energy. And because we tuned in to the fairy world, we really had the intention of like experiencing them. That is what we experienced. We experienced real, true magic, but it was nature magic. It's like when you are, and Ireland is also a wonderful place. The nature there is so special. The colors, the green of Ireland, it's known to have its beautiful greens and these groves that we went to. And, coupled with the Irish culture of music and traditional music sessions, we also visited that. And it was just the most magical time I've ever had was this 1 week in Ireland where Sutherland and me traveled to all these places. And really, every time we were there, I just had to open my heart. And luckily, I was so grateful for my spiritual practice of meditating on the heart because I was really able to just be there. I hadn't too many thoughts going on. I could just feel and be present. And just walking, we went on walks, nature walks, and just connected with the fairies. We had little traditions. We would leave little gifts for them at special sacred places. And we'd heard that what leprechauns really like is they like their Guinness. They like their Irish Guinness for some
Of
reason.
course,
So,
of course.
yeah, but what the Irish farmers used to do is they would leave food offerings for the fairies. So, they would leave a little bit of Guinness for them. They would leave, some butter and some food, and they would place it as an offering. And then the fairies would also take care of the farm. That was the idea. It's really, for centuries, farmers would do that. And so what we did every night, we don't drink, but we would order a pint of Guinness and we would just leave it on the table. And the idea was this is for the fairies. And what Tanis Hallowell described in her book is that they actually drink the essence of it. So they don't actually drink the drink, but they take the
The
essence. That's how
subtle,
she described it.
subtle energy.
Yeah, the subtle energy of the pint, and that's what feeds them. And then you're not supposed to actually drink the rest of it. That's really disgusting to them. So you're supposed to just throw it away because they've already drunk the essence of it. But anyway, we did that and we felt that we received a lot of blessings. And, it's just a very magical experience. But I think you can have that really speaks to what you were talking about. Every place has its own consciousness and every place has its own magic. And that only unlocks if you spend enough time there and really focus on your heart and try to kind of zone out of your mind and be really present. And then the magic of that place starts speaking to you and starts to converse with you.
Yeah, I always like to say to people, if where you are right now seems boring and dull, it means you're not really there. What it means is
Good one.
you're caught in your own thoughts, which you've experienced before over and over again. So, of course, it's going to seem boring and dull. Because if you
Yeah.
are ever truly where you are, you'll find that it's radically interesting in ways that you can't even imagine. And I always like to say around you at every moment, there's infinite amount of complexity that you'll never have enough time in this lifetime to fully understand. And so like it's like in your room at the moment, there's pictures and there's books and there's music and all of these things which will take you on journeys and to places and open your mind to different ideas and different things. And so at all times we're surrounded by all of this wisdom and knowledge and inspiring things and magic, and especially out in nature as well. It's like in nature, it's in a completely different form. Um, but yeah, I'm pleased you had such a good time in Ireland on that trip. 'Cause it
Yeah.
was really, it's a magical thing to be sent to do. We want you to go and track down some leprechauns in Ireland. It just like
Yeah.
that would be their dream assignment to be sent on.
It was the best, actually, it was the best assignment I ever had. I have to say, in my 12 years of being a freelance
Yeah,
journalist, this gives me the most
it's
joy.
really, it really was a cool thing. So,
Yeah.
so I want to bring up a couple of points which I think are kind of interesting that tie into the spiritual heart. So we've talked a lot in previous episodes about how for something to be really transcendently true, it has to have been true now, and it has to be true in the future, and it has to have been true in the past. And so you'd expect to see signs of it popping up in times, throughout time, throughout history and culture. And so obviously, when we talk about the spiritual heart, we're not inventing something new because obviously human beings have had this idea of the heart and the types of qualities that the heart embodies, and all of us already know them. So they're still in our culture in such a way that they're being passed on as throughout, in current times. But if we look back throughout history, I think it's really interesting to see how the heart played an important role at different times in different traditions. And so one of the ones that always strikes me the most is the Egyptian tradition. And what's really interesting about the Egyptian tradition is the Egyptian traditions, the traditional religious or spiritual beliefs that they practice there, went on unchanged for several thousand years. Like it went on for a period of time that for us in modern times, it's so hard to imagine that people kept on acting out the same traditions, the same beliefs, the same religious rituals for thousands of years consecutively. And for me, that shows that there's something real and it works, obviously, because the thing is, you're not going to continue to do a practice if it's not working. If you're not getting some sort of result or some sort of benefit from that practice, you will give up at some point. And really, the foundation of the Egyptian belief system is that this world that we're living in is a testing ground for your moral and ethical actions. So you come here and basically you're being tested to see if you will act out the right types of behaviors and actions here on earth, and that there will come when you pass away a time of judgment. So they had the idea of, a sacred river leading to, the underground, the afterlife. And at that point, there would be a judge, and her name was Mut. Um, and Mut's job was to judge you for your actions here on earth. And so the ancient Egyptians, especially the wealthy and the powerful, they were really, really highly concerned about doing the right actions here on earth so that then in the afterlife that they would have a good go of things. But so how Mut, the goddess, would judge you was that she would actually weigh your heart. So she had an old balance scale. Well, perhaps at her time it was a brand new one. So for us, it looks old fashioned. But she had a balance scale and she would weigh your heart on one side, and on the other side, she had one feather. And so if your heart was heavier than a feather, there was a giant monster there that would immediately devour you. And
Oh man, yeah.
I always found that so fascinating, that the idea of the ideal life is a life that leaves you with a heart as light as a feather. Because
That's beautiful.
that's not
Yeah, I
uncommon.
totally get what that means. It's like this feeling of being really lighthearted,
Yeah.
literally.
And we still use that. We say, "Oh, he's a light-hearted fellow," or or that person, "Oh, they've got a really heavy heart at the moment," when you've gone
Yeah.
through some tragedy or some grief and some turmoil. But I think it's just such a beautiful thing to think in your own life is how much weight am I putting on my heart from my actions? Like, am I acting in
Yes.
such a way that I'm keeping that lightness? Am I act? Because I think if you act every time you betray your own heart, you make your heart get heavier. And each time you act in tune and in harmony with your own heart, you become lighter. And so every day we're making actions and making choices that are either supporting our heart and making it become lighter and lighter and making us become lighter, or we're doing
Yeah.
things that we know we shouldn't be doing, and we're weighing our heart down. And so
It's basically a tradition that focuses on, giving the heart agency in your life, saying like the
yeah,
heart knows what is the right thing to do, and it's a beautiful way of saying always follow your heart.
yeah, and then so that comes to from that time they were thinking like that. Today, I'm not sure if you've heard of this philosophy, but it's called radical authenticity. And so
Mm,
it's a philosophy of how you should perhaps try and live your life. And so the idea of radical authenticity is that at all times and all places, you should stop trying to betray yourself and stop trying to fit in with the group and with other people's ideas of what you should be doing. And instead take the position that I have a unique heart or a unique inner nature, and I should try and express that. And that is the highest good that I can do. Truly act
but
out
it's not it's
myself.
not it's not to it's not to consciously act abnormal at all times, right? That's not what it means.
No, it does not mean
I mean,
conscious.
it can be easily misunderstood. I can see that.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is, first of all, the first step of radical authenticity is trying to understand, who am I? So it's going back to that question. So you need to do the practice and the work. So it is a very deep philosophy in that sense, that to really be radically, truly authentic in yourself, you actually have to know who you are. because so many of the ideas you're carrying, so many of the behaviors you're doing have come from your interactions with the world around you. They've been given to you rather than you having found them yourself. But so this practice of radical authenticity asks you to drop all of those things, all of those acts that you're putting on, take the mask off, and really try and develop and understand who you truly are. And so for me, it's a very powerful and profound way to actually try and live your life. And it's actually much harder than it sounds, because a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'm my own self, and I do what I please, and I do what feels right for me." But if you're actually truly sincere with yourself, you'll see so many of the little actions that you take are trying to please other people. Um, they're trying to live up to other people's expectations of what your life should look like or how your behavior.
But it's not bad to please other people, isn't it? Sometimes it can be good.
No, exactly, but it's all about knowing what your intention is. So if you're acting in a certain way, but it's going against yourself, you're in some way, you feel as though you're betraying yourself by this doing this action, but you do it because you know that someone else wants you to do that action. Like, for example, say
Yeah.
you've taken on this character of always being self-giving and helpful, and then someone rings you up and says, "Oh, I've got this thing on this weekend, can you please come?" And you really had other plans. You really felt like, this weekend I was going to spend time doing this or that. But you betray yourself by saying, "Oh, okay, well, I want to keep this character up of being self-giving, and so I'll go along and help this person, even though you don't feel that it's the right thing for you to do in that moment." So that's the betrayal, because that's the thing. Like, every day that there's an infinite number of good things you could be possibly doing, but there's some things that are uniquely yours. There's some tasks that there's no one else in the universe that will do them if you don't do them. And so I think that's the cool thing about it. When it really, you're valuing your own unique soul's qualities and your unique special ability to offer something to the world. Because there's many other people that perhaps could have helped that person and could do what they're asking for. So it's valuing your own unique soul's purpose properly.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
so
That sounds great.
so but
So it's a balance. It's a balance between what you want to do for yourself and what you want to do for others. Sometimes it's difficult to make up that balance, right? Because we've been taught also from a morals point of view, it is good to do something selflessly for somebody else. But yeah, some people take that too far. I can see that. When you always like erase yourself, you take yourself out of the equation, there will come a point when something in you will start rebelling and I think you become very cantankerous or,
re-
very unhappy. Yeah. And so the idea is, where is the balance? And again, when you go back to your heart will always tell you the right balance. Your heart will say yes, or your heart will say no. And we haven't even touched upon the subject of deep intuition. That is another quality of the heart. The heart knows when something is the right thing to do. The heart knows when you have to go left, or when you have to do this kind of thing, when you have to change your job, or when you have to perhaps end a relationship or start a new one, or make friends, or distance yourself from others. And that is, and also intuition of what is maybe going to happen. Sometimes the heart has these really powerful insights of something. Perhaps it's a feeling something good is going to happen soon, or there's going to be a big change coming soon. And these are just not flukes of our imagination. These are not like mental hallucinations, but they really come from a deep source inside us. And when you develop the heart, the intuitions become clearer and stronger as well. Do you have some experiences of that yourself?
so yes, yeah, definitely. I think the heart, for me, when I think of it, it's the one part of us that can connect to that deep wisdom. So there's that information is there on some plane or in some space, but with our mind, we can never quite grasp it. We can never quite figure out exactly what the right action to do is, because the world's infinitely complicated and we've got so many options. And so if we don't ever learn to connect with that deep wisdom and intuition that the heart connects us to, we will always be at the mercy of the appearance of things, because sometimes something can look like the right thing to do, and then it's only when we do it we realize, oh, actually that did not feel, that did not work out, or that was not the right action actually to take. And sometimes the most mysterious actions, if you actually take them, you'll realize, wow, that was actually the exact right thing to do. And so, I mean,
Yes.
my life changed tremendously around 2009, when I really started to take those inner feelings and inner messages seriously. And up until that point, I think I've mentioned this before, but I was doing my spiritual practices, and I was trying to follow my master's teachings, and I was trying to be live a good spiritual life from what I knew and what I could learn from the books I'd.
And that's a great way to start. That's a great place to start from.
Exactly, yeah, and for me, it was exactly right. And so I'd had 9 or 10 years of my practice carrying on in that fashion. But at that point in 2009, I started to have these inner feelings about which direction I should go and some things I should do. And so one of them was doing my first ultra marathon. So it just really captured me, and there was some real enthusiasm for it, but it was unwanted enthusiasm. I really was like, really ultra marathoning, because at that point there wasn't the community or the enthusiasm or the joy around ultra marathons that you see now, where ultra marathons have become such a big thing out there in the world, in many senses. Um, but yeah, it was amazing that once I took that step to actually, because when that feeling kept on coming and it kept on coming, and first of all, I tried to push it away and tried to reason it away. I said, there's many years. I'm still just a young man. I can run long races sometime in the future. But the intuition kept on saying, no, no, this is the right thing to do. It was this feeling pushing me in that direction. And once I surrendered to it, or accepted that inspiration, so, okay, I'll do my first ultra marathon, and it was August 2009. It didn't just change me from the experience of doing the ultra marathon, though, because that was a wonderful experience and that changed my life in some way. But instead, the profound thing was to really realize on a real personal level that there is some wisdom inside of me that can help guide me to make better choices in my life than than I could by myself. Like, if I relied on my own decision making, I couldn't make decisions as well as I could if I listened to that intuition. And so for me, that was a revelation. And that's really guided my life from that point on, that I've really realized that I don't need someone else to tell me the right things to do in my life, that there is this access to all of those insights and all of that wisdom that comes through my own spiritual practices. And so every year I have to be, I try and refresh that, and I try and take it very seriously. And I try and almost ask, okay, what should I do with my life in this year? Like, and one of the things I do to try and bring some intensity is I always tell myself, okay, this could be the very last year of my life. And so if this was the last year of my life, what would I do with my life in this year? And I don't try and create the ideas myself. I don't try and, like, do some research and look things up and try and find some things that look cool or interesting. But instead I create a space in my life where I have put that intention out there, and then I wait for the feelings to come. I wait for the sensation. I wait for that inner message to come in and through me. And that's how I start to get the guidance of perhaps what I should do in the year to come, and what would be the things that would be most meaningful for both myself and for the people around me in my community, and what would be the things that are most meaningful in the great span of time as well.
And these include like the countries that you want to travel to
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
year.
So I'll start to get a sense of some place. I start to feel a calling almost, and it's almost as though there's some understanding that there's some experiences that if I go to that place, I will have some certain types of experiences, or I'll have some certain insights that I would not have gotten if I'd gone somewhere else. So, and it's really hard because I can't explain. Like, when people say to me, "Oh, why did you choose to go to this place?" I have no idea. I have no idea why I chose. It's not until after I've been there that I even understand why I was there. It was like, I've gone to the place, I've tried to experience it from my heart as fully as possible, and every day enter into that space of being completely open and completely present, because It's great because it puts me in a space where every day I'm open to whatever magic the world will give me. Because if I've gone there on this in a quest or in a journey or this pilgrimage, and there's a sense that there's something for me to learn there, and then every day I have to be ready because you never know when the lesson will come. And so for me, it's a great way to live my life because it really forces me to be in the moment and in the day because you never know when you will receive some great insight from the universe. You may be talking to a guy selling coconuts on the side of the road, and he may start telling you the story. And if you were in your mind and you're thinking, oh, I want to get back to my accommodation, I've got things to do, you would totally overlook the whole thing. But if you're looking for an experience, if you're there and feeling as though that at any moment the universe could give you a gift of some important experience, you will be paying attention to him in a different way. That perhaps this is the person who has the lesson that I'm here to learn. And I think even if you don't travel anywhere, if you're just going about your life and your day to day reality in your city or where you live, if you choose just to live your life as though that nothing useful will come out of today and it's just an ordinary day and that you perhaps should just try and get through it as quickly as possible and then you can get home and watch your favorite series on Netflix. I would posit that perhaps you missed out on all of the interesting things that potentially could have happened in that day. And so if you
Yeah.
instead have the point of view that this is an interactive universe we're living in and everyone knows things that we don't know. And if we're open and we're sharing and connecting with the experiences that are happening, we will learn things and doors will open and moments will happen that could perhaps be profoundly revealing in your life.
Wow, and wonderful. So I think we've come to the end of our hour and a half podcast again.
Yeah.
Did you say everything that you wanted to say?
Well, there was just two little things that I think are just are quite interesting about how they connect to the heart. And so one of them
Okay.
is beauty. And so it seems as though the mind is not the right part of our being to appreciate true transcendent beauty. And so why I was thinking about that is because it's springtime here. And so we've had so many amazing spring flowers already. We had the magnolias and the daffodils come early here, and then at the moment the azaleas are in full bloom. And then also we have this lovely series of cherry blossom trees. So first of all, the white ones blossom very early, and then as the springtime progresses, the white and pink ones start blossoming, and then these lovely very pink ones are blossoming at the moment. But so every morning I actually make my running route specifically to see as many of these beautiful cherry blossom trees as I can. And so, and normally there's one that I just is so outstandingly beautiful, and I'll always stop and stand underneath it, and I might put my hands up and touch the blossoms and just try and experience the feeling of them and the texture. And I love looking up through the tree and seeing the blue sky in the springtime through them. And when I'm there, I'm no longer me. I'm not me as in the person that I am in my day-to-day life when I'm going to work and paying the bills and doing all of these things. So there's something that I'm no longer caught by time. There's something so timeless about just seeing something of transcendent beauty, and especially something that is very poignant in that the spring blossoms are always so fleeting. And I look around the world here in Christchurch where I am, and I just see people rushing around, and they're just marching past this amazing tree that's blossoming like there's no tomorrow, and in a few days it will be gone. And I just feel this, I don't want to judge other people, but I just feel the sadness when I see people not taking the moment because I get so much from those moments of connecting with that beauty. And it really does put me in the heart. And I'm really like, I could be at any time in any place. Like I could be, a Chinese person 5,000 years ago looking at a magnolia tree because they originally come from China. So when I'm there really communing with in that moment with the tree, somehow I'm no longer caught by time and space and my mind and the character that I'm playing. And instead it takes me to a place that is from the heart. It's something transcendent. And so I think the heart is the right place to experience beauty from, but also beauty can take us to the heart. So I think that's a beautiful relationship, that it goes both ways. And then the other thing about the heart is that yeah, like nature, it uses the heart as well. So one thing that nature does is nature uses cuteness to bring forward the heart um, of of whatever creatures you're dealing with. So if you look at any creature when it's a baby, it has this certain aspect of cuteness, and it's something about the size of the eyes and the face. But it's like whether it's a baby deer or it's a baby dog or it's a baby, whatever the animal is, they're really cute. And so I think nature is using beauty and cuteness to connect with the heart of the other animals around it. And so for me, so obviously like a mother cat loves her kittens and, cares for them and, looks after them. And you see that all through the animal kingdoms, that whatever animal it is, it loves their children, their offspring, and will do everything it can to protect them. But I saw the most amazing video that showed the power of this cuteness to bring forward the heart of an animal. And it was in Africa, and a lioness had just killed a antelope. And so the mother antelope, though, had her very young calf with her. And so when we talk about animals, we often talk about how they run purely on instinct. And so they're caught by the game of instinct, and they don't have that ability to have moral and ethical decision making. But in this one particular, somehow someone was filming it. So the lioness has killed the mother, and then she sees the baby antelope, and the baby antelope is so young that she's completely helpless. And so you would think that the right thing to do for a lioness is then to kill the baby antelope, and then she can eat all of it. It's food, it's nourishment, it's exactly what she's designed to do. But she does not kill the baby antelope. So she looks at this thing, and it's so cute. It's kind of wobbly on its legs, and it's got these big eyes. And so she picks it up by the back of the neck, like she would for her own kittens. And she actually runs off with it and actually takes it back to the other antelopes. And obviously they're going to be freaked out when they see this lioness coming. But she takes it and she drops it, and then she runs back, and she does what she does with the
Wow.
other antelope.
And this is definitely not AI.
No,
This is real.
this was quite some years ago I saw this, but it just struck me that even in the animal kingdom, when they're much more caught by the forces of nature just acting out their behaviors, that even for them, there is the ability for their heart to come to the fore. And you see it with all sorts of animals, whether it's, dogs and their owners, or there've been many cases of people being in need of rescue, and, a dolphin or a whale or different types of intelligent creatures will actually come and be of service. And in those situations, it's really the heart that they're experiencing. Like, if your heart, if you're suddenly full of fear and, in a dangerous situation, and an animal feels that, its heart also can come to the fore, and it can
Yeah.
respond to that.
So the heart is the universe. It's universal. It's all across
Universal language. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing. Someone was asking me the other day, said, "How many languages do you speak?" I said, "I speak two." And they said, what are they? I said, "I speak English and the language of the heart." And when you can speak the
Oh,
language of the heart, you don't need any other languages.
very true. Very true. Maybe that's a good note to end on today.
Thank you very much.
So anyway, thank you too, Vajan. Thank you for your insights and the wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah,
It was all from the heart.
it was.
And
Onwards and up.
thank you, dear listener. Yes, onwards and upwards. Thank you, dear listeners, for joining us again. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. If you like our podcast, please consider subscribing, tell a friend, leave a comment or review. And we hope to see you again next time.